Good morning and welcome to TNT, coming to you today from suburban Mount Eliza, about 1 hour south of Melbourne in the state of Victoria. Thank you for joining us, and although we've got blue skies, it is freezing here. And I'm going to rush inside and do the program from my sister's home. Thanks for joining us, and thank you to our sponsors, 5 Star Marine. And thank you all for joining us here at Studio 219 at Mount Eliza, in the quiet little borough and village where I did a lot of my education. In fact, this is my sister's home, complete with the washing and a turquoise door. I have no idea why it's been painted that colour. Anyway, great to have you with us as we check Thailand's main news stories. And there is a lot to talk about today, so let's get started. Starting with flooding, and this from the nation, Thailand. Water runoffs, rising sea tides inundate Bangkok's satellite provinces. We mentioned yesterday that some of the satellite provinces of Bangkok were already being affected by the rising waters. Nonthaburi and Nakhon Pathom, Bangkok's satellite provinces, flooded yesterday by water runoffs from the north and rising sea tides. We've got an overflowing Chao Phraya River with floodwaters 50 to 70 centimetres high in the main city district. Small vehicles advised to avoid the areas. Traffic congestion formed before noon yesterday. Vehicles forced to move slowly, and we can see why in a bit of a photo essay at the nation Thailand there. Obviously, some of those cars probably not going to make it all the way through. So the flooding reaching the Chao Phraya and Bangkok now. So let's see if the main city is going to be suffering today and tomorrow. We'll certainly bring you up to date with any major developments in that area. To another story, and this is also from nation Thailand. The TAT confident of 10 million arrivals this year as tourism sector places hopes on the high season. Well, we've all been waiting to see what happens with the high season, and the bookings seem to be steadily increasing, but it's not going to be a high season like Thailand's had before. Let's hope it is good as it can possibly be. So this story says that Thailand set for a strong recovery in tourist arrivals. The Tourism Authority of Thailand, our very favourite number crunchers, remains optimistic of achieving its target of 10 million tourists for 2022. The Association of Thai Travel Agents predicts at least 20 million foreign visitors would enter the country this year. So interesting to see that obviously this year started with pretty much nothing and building up to 1.5 million tourists hopefully coming through the turnstiles each month for the last 3 months. So the TAT Governor Yutisak Supasorn saying that the agency was still confident the country receiving 10 million tourists over the year. In the last quarter, the TAT estimating at least 1.5 million foreigners entering Thailand per month, representing 50% of the pre-COVID level in 2019. So that's about right. If we do get 1.5 million tourists coming through the turnstiles, that will represent about 50% of the tourist numbers before. However, as we've pointed out a million times in the past, they're not all tourists. A lot of these people are Thais, are returning Thais, they're business travellers, they're expats. So not everybody who arrives in Thailand is a tourist, but the TAT always counts them as tourists. And more in that story saying that most of the foreign... In fact, I couldn't quite understand this paragraph. See if you can figure it out for me. He added, however, that most of the foreign tourists travel on land from Thailand's neighbouring countries, particularly Malaysia. About 1 million Malaysian tourists came to Thailand in the first 9 months of 2022. So we note that Malaysians have been quite a high proportion of the people coming to Thailand, and that they do come across the land border. But that seems to suggest that most tourists are coming from Thailand's neighbouring countries, which is not quite right. As we know, most of the tourists coming to Thailand this year have been from India, which is certainly a change in the tourism demographic, but it's certainly been also a chance for Thailand to diversify its tourist mix. East Asia has also been a big contributor, places like South Korea and Japan, And there's also been some more tourists coming in from Laos and Vietnam and sort of countries immediately adjacent to Thailand. So, we'll just have to see how those numbers go, but it looks like we will have, at least a half-decent high season this year when it comes to tourism. To our next story today, and a woman poses as a judge, millions in damages. So if you can't come up with a scam, come up with your own. And this woman's done just that. And she posed as a judge, I just read this as it is there, manages to get millions after claiming she can get villagers jobs in the court. 15 villagers fell victim after the woman went around the village advertising her position and her abilities. Before securing the position, victims had to transfer funds directly into her account. The damages stand at about 2 million baht. Well, okay, if you're going to be silly enough to send the money to this woman posing as a judge, silly you. It looks like there are scammers everywhere, and Thais fall to the scams just as often as foreigners do. Our next story today from Thai PBS World, and Their Majesties preside over unveiling of late King Bhumibol Adulyadej statue. This happened yesterday, which was commemorating the late King's passing back in 2016, and a beautiful statue unveiled, and the story about that particular event. And then we've got Their Majesties and the entourage in front of the new statue of King Bhumibol Adulyadej, saying that Their Majesties, the King and Queen, yesterday presided over a royal ceremony to unveil the statue of the late King Bhumibol Adulyadej at the new Chalerm Plakiet Park in Bangkok's Dusit district. And the new park is located on 279 rai of land and designed as Bangkok's new lung. With thousands of new trees to be planted there, it will also serve as a reminder of contributions by the late King and Queen Sirikit, the Queen Mother, to the Thai society. So Their Majesties on show in what seems to be somewhat of a bit of a PR offensive at the moment as they get out and about with the Thai people at this time. And we can see the statue there with all the supporters of the royal family dressed in yellow. Quite a magnificent sight. This is the TNT program coming to you from my sister's home, and we'll be in another location tomorrow for the program, doing our best to try and keep on bringing you all the latest news from Thailand. This is TNT. TNT, it's Friday, last day of the week, hopefully doing our live program tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Thai time. I'll have to take my shoes and socks off to figure out exactly what time that is, where I'll be, but we'll do our best to try and have our weekly chat. Where I am at the moment, not much different inside, it's around about 9 or 10 degrees. I don't do anything less than 20 degrees usually. To our next story today, and a couple of more flooding stories. Udon Ratchathani Zoo closed indefinitely due to flooding. The animals are safe, we're glad to report. About 600 animals up at the Ubon Ratchathani Zoo. And let's just check that this is the third paragraph. The main access to the zoo and the tourist service area are submerged at the moment, making it inconvenient and possibly unsafe for visits by tourists. And down the bottom, the irrigation department reporting that people in Ubon Ratchathani may have to live with the flooding for another month because the levels of the water in the Mun River remain high as more continues to pour into the river from Sisaket province. So we note that even though a lot of the rains causing this flooding occurred more than 2 weeks ago, it's still floating around the area and going from one area to another. Sisaket province was particularly hard hit, and now that floodwaters heading into Udon Ratchathani. Where is Udon Ratchathani, I hear you ask? Well, we got out a map, and we can see it down there in the southern part of the Isan region, close to the Cambodian and the Lao border, and Bangkok some 4 or 5 hours away there by car. So that's where Ubon Ratchathani is. To another flooding story, and this from Thai PBS World. 70 temples and historical sites in Ayutthaya risk collapse due to flooding. And a spokesperson there saying that the foundations of the temples and historical sites remain strong but may be eroded by the floodwater and that may lead to the collapse of the main structures. Ayutthaya used to be the capital of the Siam Kingdom, and it's up to the north of Bangkok, and it's obviously got a lot of old temples. Mostly ruins, unfortunately. They didn't survive ransacking by the Burmese many hundreds of years ago, but the remains are certainly something that the Thais want to preserve. And the fourth paragraph there, temples and other ancient sites located next to the Chao Phraya River are now being closed to the public. So if you're thinking of heading up to Ayutthaya, don't bother, because it's all going to be closed and there is flooding in the area. This story from Thai PBS World. The Thai government considers new measures on guns and narcotics abuse. So a lot of knee-jerk reaction to the events last Thursday up in the Isan region with the massacre at the childcare centre, and quite a few meetings being held by different bodies to try and mitigate further events like this happening in the future. In the first paragraph, the government plans to overhaul gun laws to make it harder for people to acquire licensed firearms, to empower authorities to confiscate guns from people who are mentally unfit to own them, and to grant amnesty and incentives for those in illegal possession of guns to surrender them to the authorities. Just noting the third paragraph down there, and this is a meeting chaired by the Prime Minister of Thailand, Prayut Chan-o-cha, said the meeting was held to develop guidelines for solving the problems of drug abuse and gun-related violence effectively, including a review of laws concerning gun ownership and the carrying of guns in public. And this paragraph surprised me. The meeting also discussed the idea of revoking the gun licenses of people who are deemed to be a threat to society or who are addicted to narcotics. Adding, the meeting also discussed the problem of illegal firearms and the online sale of illegal firearms. Well, I'm certainly thinking that they would consider very strongly revoking the licenses of people who are addicted to narcotics. That hasn't already happened was a bit of a surprise to me. And further, the Prime Minister said drug abuse was also discussed at the meeting, with a suggestion that drug addicts should be treated as patients who need to be treated, and the amount of methamphetamine pills in the possession of an individual that would constitute a criminal offence should be increased from 5 to 15. In other words, saying that people with just 5 pills shouldn't be treated as drug addicts and there should be more leniency. Well, obviously that is something that the Thai people will have to try and get a grip on, how lenient they're going to be towards people who are taking illicit drugs. And then the Prime Minister said that communities can play a pivotal role in dealing with drug abuse, but noted that the government has always been tough on illicit drug trafficking and gun violence, but the problem persists, a situation that exists in most countries in the world. Very difficult problems, and obviously some countries have gone about it with decriminalisation, with greater liberalisation of drug laws, and in some cases it works, in some cases it doesn't, noting that a lot of Southeast Asia still has quite draconian drug laws when it comes to illicit substances. And just finally on that story, another measure being considered is whether gun licences should be renewed every 3 or 5 years. Currently there's no need for licences to be renewed. And the meeting also considered whether it's necessary for retired police officers to own a gun. Let me save you the trouble of having to consider an answer on that one. The answer should definitely be no. And to our final story, and a lot of people talking about this, Thailand abstains in UN vote condemning Russia's illegal referenda in Ukraine. This story coming from Thai PBS World. And Thailand has abstained, as did China and India, in a vote on the UN resolution not to recognise the 4 regions of Ukraine, which Russia has claimed following referenda held there last month. The results were 143 member states in favour, with 5 voting against and 35 abstentions. The countries voting against were Belarus, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, Nicaragua, Russia and Syria. And there are the results there if you want to do a freeze frame and just note the people that abstained and the people who voted against. Thailand, of course, abstaining in this vote, and I'm not sure if that's going to go well for Thailand, who's looking to try and attract people to come and visit the country. I think a lot of people would take a certain amount of offence of Thailand abstaining on this particular vote. We'll just have to see how that washes out. Just also noting on that story that Thailand also abstained in a vote to suspend Russia from UN Human Rights Council in April this year, citing inclusivity. Not really sure how or why that's a reason. In March, Thailand did, however, vote to condemn Russia's aggression in Ukraine. And with that, we wind up today's TNT. And we're on the move again today. It looks like the sun is out, which is much better than it was yesterday. And hopefully tomorrow we'll be able to find a way to do our live program. I just have to get my clock out and try and work out the daylight savings here in Melbourne and then subtract that by the price of fish at the Bendigo market. Anyway, we will work it out and we'll try and be online at 9 a.m. Thai time. And we look forward to seeing you then. Thanks for watching.